Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for signing in this morning. Again, just a quick reminder that we are having in-person training, so that is why you're watching this recording right now. We're going to briefly talk about the elements of narrative, which we've already talked about before. We're just going to do a quick review, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to our assignment for the day. So we're continuing with the theme of identity in the Middle Ages. Oops, by accident I put 28, but today is the 29th of September. The month is almost over in a couple of days. So let's go ahead and move on with the PowerPoint. And again, this PowerPoint will be available for you in the Teams page, so in our general page. Again, a narrative is a story. It is the account of events, experiences, and details. It also refers to the storytelling process, right? So a narrative is a story. The elements of narrative are plot, character, setting, theme, point of view, and tone, right? So we have 6 elements of narrative. And what do we mean by elements? Elements are just the pieces that create a narrative, right? So without these, it's a weak narrative, right? So we need to make sure that we understand that without these elements, the narrative would be weak, so it would be missing something. So again, a plot, when you think about plot, you need to think about plot diagram, right? So plot is the sequence of events, right? What's happening in what order that make up a story. A plot is made out of 6 elements. It's made out of the exposition. In the exposition, we are also introduced the conflict. Then we have the rising action. Then we have the climax. We have the falling action. And then we have the resolution, right? So that's what our plot is. And again, plot diagram. So as you can see in the exposition, if you remember, in the exposition, we are exposed, we're introduced to who the characters are, what the setting are, what the multiple settings could be. We are also introduced to the conflict, and this is all in this beginning phase of the story, right? And then we have the rising action. Remember, in the rising action is when they start building up the tension, they start building up the action, and usually a lot of drama and action happens in these scenes. And then climax is that peak point, right, where the drama, something's gonna happen. Either everything is going to collapse, or the plan is gonna go through, right? So that's our turning point. That's the climax. And then we have the falling action, right? So since this is our turning point, something happens that changes the tone of the story, right? It changes the what is happening, the events in the story. So then there's the falling action, and again at the end we have our resolution, and we know that our resolution is our conclusion, right? What happened in the end? Was the problem resolved? Did they find an answer to the question? What happened? And then we have character. A character is a person, animal, being, creature, or a thing in a story. The types of characters that we mostly focus on are the protagonist, which is the main character. And this is usually the character that the story revolves around. Then we have the antagonist. The antagonist is a character or group of characters that causes a conflict for the protagonist. Remember that you can be an antagonist, so be the bad character or whatever, and still be the protagonist. So the story can still be about you, and it can the whole story can revolve around you, even if you're not a good guy or a good person in the character. So then we have secondary characters, which are our minor characters that support the major characters. Then we have setting. Setting is the time and place of the story. Remember, there are 2 types of setting. We have physical setting, which is where the story is taking place, and chronological. That is the setting of when is the story taking place. Is it daytime, nighttime? What year is it? What century is it? What country is it in? Right? Like, what's happening? What is the time and place? And then physical is, where are they? Are they in a castle? Are they in space? Are they in the beach? Where are they, right? So again, the setting is the time and place of the story, the when and the where. Then we have theme. Theme is the underlying message that the writer would like to get across. One key characteristic of literary themes is their universality. Right? Remember, universality means that it's something that everyone in the universe can relate to, right? If you remember my example, if I hit myself, you know what pain feels like. So you would be able to understand if I go like, oh, my arm, right? So again, theme, that's the same thing. These are, the author creates these books and these texts to send a message across, right? And it's not always going to be upfront. Sometimes you need to use the clues that are given to you, things like the tone, things like the plot, right? To understand what's going on. And eventually you finish that text and you're like, oh, I understand what that message is, right? So themes are ideas that do not clearly apply to a specific character and events of a book or play, but also express a broader truth about human experience that readers can apply to their own lives. So remember, these are usually things that you can apply to your own life. There's many themes, but we have themes like judgment, survival, peace and war, love, heroism, good and evil, circle of life, suffering, deception, and coming of age, right? And again, we're going to continue investigating these themes. Then we have tone. Tone is the attitude of a writer towards a subject or audience. Tone is generally conveyed through the choice of words or a viewpoint of a writer on a subject. So again, tone means attitude. Always remember about what your parents tell you when you are being a little bit angry or trying to be sassy, right? They tell you like, bring your tone down, right? Check your attitude. Remember, we have to make that connection of tone equals attitude, right? How is the writer telling us how they feel about a certain topic or about a certain person or character, right? There's always going to be hints of what the author is feeling, what their attitude is. And of course, we have point of view. We have first person, second person, and third person. First person means the main character is telling the story, right? When we think about Tobias in the Castle Diary, he is the main character. He is the person who's telling us the story. So the point of view would be first person. And the keywords that you usually get when it's the first person point of view is I, me, we, my, ours, our. And then we have second person. For second person, the author or narrator is telling the story to you, the reader. Okay, so someone, either the author or the narrator, is telling you, the reader, the story, and they use keywords like you, yours, and your, right? And then we have third person. The author or narrator is telling you a story, is telling you the story, but is not part of it, right? So that difference between second and third person. In second person, they can be in the story, but the third person point of view, that person is not in the story, right? The person that's narrating, telling you the story, is not part of it. And remember, there's two types of third person. There's omniscient and limited third person. Limited means that you get to know what the characters are feeling through dialogue, and dialogue is the conversations they're having, but you do not get to know what's happening in their heads, right? Like what they're thinking inside their heads. And then that's why it's limited, right? You don't get to know everything that's going through their head. But when we have third person omniscient, that narrator or author can tell us exactly what that character's thinking, even though they're narrating. So they use he, she, it, they, them. And this is what you're going to complete for the assignment. So I'm going to ask you, I know that we're already supposed to be in chapter 8 of the book. We should have already finished chapter 8 by today. But what I'm going to ask you is I'm going to ask you to pause on the reading, and I'm going to ask you to go back to chapter 1. So I want you to reread chapter 1 through 3. And remember, these are very short chapters. These are not even 15 pages. You should be able to get it done quickly. So you're going to reread chapter 1 through 3 of The Midwife's Apprentice, and then you are going to complete handout 21 narrative elements. Again, this will be posted in our general page. It will be called handout 21 narrative elements. If for some reason you can't find it, send me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or try asking a classmate, right? And then so you're going to make sure that that is your priority, right? So your priority is to reread chapters 1 through 3. Look over your notes. Make sure that you remember what the story is about, or what that part of the story is about. And then you're going to complete handout 21. After you're done with that, then you are going to go ahead and make sure that you've already read up to chapter 8. And you have to also make sure that you are creating those Notice and Wonder charts for every chapter. The reason why I'm asking you to create those Notice and Wonder charts are because I want to make sure that you're reading the text, right? This is a really interesting book, and I think that we need to start taking it serious. Our upcoming biweekly assessment, the next one that we get, is going to cover the midwife's apprentice, right? So if you're not keeping up with the readings, then your scores are going to continue being low, right? So again, let's go back to handout 21. So I'm going to show you what handout 21 looks like. So it might look a little bit different for you because this is like the teacher view. This is what yours will look like, right? But for the sake of not having to type in things, I'm just going to keep it this way. So handout 21, narratives of element identifications. We have chapter 1, right? So you should be able to have read chapter 1 through 3. You could break it down. You could read chapter 1 and then do this section of the worksheet, and then read chapter 2 and do the second section. So there's going to be a specific section for each chapter. So in this one, they're only asking about chapter 1. The instructions said, read chapter 1 of the Midwife Apprentice before starting on the assignment. Make sure you answer incomplete sentences. Okay, well, I already finished reading chapter 1, Ms. Nevares. I reviewed my notes. I reread it. Super easy, very interesting. Okay, now what do I have to do? Well, now you need to answer these questions. I'm going to ask you, what are the key details about the main characters, right? So what you should do in this question is, you should tell me who are the main characters that are being introduced, right? And what do you learn about those characters, right? If we remember chapter 1, we remember that they introduced Beetle, right? And they're describing how she has a really sad life and she sleeps in the garbage, right? So you can be able to give me all those details. You can talk about the midwife, right? So go ahead and just tell me any key details about the characters. And then we have, and again, I don't want just words. Make sure that you are writing in complete sentences. So you can say something like, the key details about Beetle is that blank, blank, blank. The key details about the midwife is blank, 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 right? And then we have number 2, setting details. Where is the story taking place? How are they describing the setting, right? So just tell me details about chapter 1, okay? Tell me, where is the story taking place? How are they describing the place, right? I remember chapter 1, they were very descriptive with the noise, with the sound, with the smell, describing the way that it looked, right? I could imagine myself in that pile of trash. So make sure that you include those details. Then we have question number 3. What is the conflict or problem of chapter 1, right? There was quite a problem there, so you should be able to tell me what the problem was and what problem was Beetle facing, right? And then we have question number 4. What is the resolution? So resolution is, how did the problem get resolved, right? So tell me, how did the conflict get resolved? And you can tell me the resolution was blah, 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 or they solved the conflict, blah, 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 in this way, blah, 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 right? Okay, well, you're done with that. You're done with chapter 1. Then you can move on to chapter 2, and it's going to be the same format. Again, what are the key details of the main characters in chapter 2? Did they introduce new ones, right? Now we have setting details. Did the setting change? Are they introducing new settings? What is the conflict of chapter 2, right? What is the problem they're facing in chapter 2? And then what is the resolution? How did they solve that problem? Then we have chapter 3, same thing. What are some key details about the main characters, right? Remember, we're learning new things about our main characters as we move on. I don't want you to write the same details. I want you to tell me what is something new that is happening with that character, right? So you complete that right there. You just tell me, we learned that, I don't know, Beetle got a new name, right? And that made her feel like she was being included, like she belongs somewhere, right? Maybe you can talk about how her relationship with the midwife has evolved. So again, just make sure to try to stick to what information you're getting from that chapter. Again, any setting details. Has the setting changed? How has the setting changed? Where are they now? And then the conflict. What is the problem of that chapter? Just chapter 3. And then what was the resolution of the problem in chapter 3? And once you're done, once you get to the 3rd section, then you're done. So I would recommend either read all 3 chapters and then get started, or read chapter 1, complete section 1, read chapter 2, complete section 2, read chapter 3, complete section 3, whatever works best for you. And this is all you have for today. Just make sure that you complete your, you read the chapters, that you complete handout 21, and that you